Thank you. Good morning. My name is Justin Rogers. The documentation would lead you to believe that I am the director of Ogama County EMS. That was in a former life. I decided I was not cut out for the office. I still have a drive to be on the road working as a paramedic. So they found someone slightly balder and more adequate than me. So Gary.
With the adequate part.
So Gary Proctor is the new director of Ogama County EMS. Myself, professionally, I am the C shift lieutenant of Iosco County EMS. I want you to know it's C shift because we are not B shift. Everybody has B shift, right?
True that.
B shifters are back here?
Sounds like some B shifters are right there.
Yeah. It looked like it. Here we go.
Oh, hey, did you not sit on
Nice.
class yesterday?
Something.
Be prepared.
Oh my God, it's messing up.
You did delete them.
Oh, fine.
Raymond.
Uh-oh.
What'd you do, bro?
Should be the right click to advance.
Is the scroll doing it?
I would have just brought my
The
clicker
scroll
if
key
you-
I
will
have my
move it
clicker.
if you're on
Want
it.
it?
Yeah, good.
I'll just keep my hands away from the roller. Okay, so the title, I want to preface this lecture by saying this is generally a topic that I present to my EMT students and my medical first responder students, and ultimately the basis of it is do a good job. We have some of those in our profession that maybe don't do that good job, and we're going to jump into that. That's the basis of what we're here for this morning. It's just a metaphor that some of us had kicked the idea around and came up with this. My expectations for this morning is that this is a conversation. I don't want to sit here and lecture at you. We had a time change. You guys lost an hour. I tried to negotiate for them to take that hour out of the lecture. They said no. So just let's engage in conversation if we can. Add value to that conversation, and certainly please laugh, whether it's at me or with me, I don't care, but please laugh. This is, again, a lecture that I generally give to 10 to 15, and over the course of about 20 minutes. So we're gonna stretch it out to an hour and a half, and we're gonna have a good time together. My last expectation for you is that you zip your boots. Look at the person to the left, to the right of you. If their boots are unzipped, you have a sloppy sandwich amongst you. The next thing I want to do is jump into a quote by Coach Herman Boone, aka Denzel Washington, in the movie Remember the Titans. I'm not a big fan of reading quotes or reading things off the screen for you, but this is important. If you report at 7:30, you will not be playing football this season. You will be watching. You will wear a jacket, shirt, and tie. If you don't have one, buy one. If you can't afford one, then borrow one from your old man. If you don't have an old man, then find a drunk, trade him for his. Because I can guarantee you, there isn't a bum on the street that looks as raggedy and ridiculous as what I'm looking at now. We've all got students that we are pretty proud of, and I think that as we progress in our career, I'm finding maybe there are some that we might not be so proud of. My professional background, I'm a third generation public safety professional. My grandfather was a fire chief and firefighter for Buick and Flint. My mom was an EMT specialist for North Branch EMS and then Lapeer County EMS when they transitioned over. And then here I am, trying to convince my child to take another route. I was licensed first as an EMT in 2011. I got my medic license in 2016 and my IC license in 2019. I'm an AHA instructor in most disciplines, or several, affiliate faculty for PHTLS, and I am completing my bachelor's degree in EMS education and EMS administration. The intent behind those three license levels is in the martial arts, they look at where did you come from. There's a big emphasis on your history. And so I wanted to take just a brief little bit this morning to acknowledge my history publicly. And some of us have had instructors that we aren't fond of. That's okay. So I'm going to call them out by name because I think her goal was to embarrass me at some point, and so I'm just gonna cut the head off the snake. So my EMT instructor was William Tarrant, my paramedic instructor was Joe Rubino, and my IC instructor was Dusty Bailey. Very happy to have come from those people. That's who brought me up, that's who raised me, that's who got me to this point. So, if you're in here and you're looking around and you have an initial education student amongst us, would you raise your hand? Okay, not as many as I thought. I do want to acknowledge and give a round of applause to those who are teaching our initial education courses, who are helping to get our staff, our providers, to where they need to be in the future. Obligatory objective slide. We're going to talk about quality instruction. We're going to talk about bias. It's important. We'll talk about some habits and a culture of professionalism and pride. So what is a sloppy sandwich maker? I've already got the heckling. I'm not going to rip on sloppy joes this morning. I've done extensive research on sloppy sandwiches. That's what led me to this point. So a sloppy sandwich, you jump in the drive-thru, or maybe you walk into the local McDonald's, Burger King, whatever, and you look at the menu and you decide to put your order in. They've got a pristine picture on the menu, and that is your expectation. You pay, hopefully the order's right, it's not likely. And then you get the food. We're sitting in the car, we're unwrapping it, and we can go back to that first slide, and that's what we've got. We've got a mess. We've got ketchup all over the wrapper. We have a mess. And so, as EMS professionals, I think we can be honest with ourselves and say that there are some sloppy sandwiches among us. Some people who don't take that pride in professionalism. Those people that maybe are disengaged, they're throwing the burger on the bun and just out. And does the public? I, for my entire career, have worked for agencies that are taxpayer funded. Those, I don't want to say more especially, but those especially deserve what was on the menu. We have a society, TV shows, Chicago Fire, you name it, and that sets an expectation. We should be delivering that and more. I had requested some of my coworkers send me pictures in uniform. It didn't happen for their benefit. So the question I ask is, what if we don't do anything with it? Maybe we are already in those programs and teaching those classes where we're turning out those menu board sandwiches. Good. But what if we're not? And what if we are, and that's not my problem. That's Ray's program. I don't have to worry about it. So what happens? What is your motivator in this education realm? We sat in class a couple of days ago. I'm really bad with names. But I sat in a class the other day and we talked about a lot of this initial education stuff. Are we working for an education program that is tasked with cranking out as many as we can, as fast as we can? Is it our employer that we are teaching for so that we can get meat in the seat quickly? Or do we care? And I would assume that the answer is yes. You're here on a Sunday morning at 9:15 to listen to a guy talk about sandwiches. So my guess is that you do care. But what are some of those things that truly motivate you to do this? And this is not rhetorical. This is, I want to know what's your motivation. Yeah.
When you're doing patient care, that somebody is special to somebody, so you want to make sure that you're giving the care that you want your family member or yourself to receive.
Absolutely. I want somebody that would take care of my family the way I would.
And kind of piggybacking off that, a lot of us live and work
Yes.
in the same place, you know, so you grow up in a community and you have family there, people you care about, friends. You know the people that are gonna be responding to your house. Who do you want showing up if your kid has RSV or something, or croup?
Yeah. Valid. Incredibly important. Yes, sir.
Well, and what about the idea of succession? I mean, we work long hours, we've got a lot of certifications to get where we are in order to teach these people. Our names go on the certificates, and then this is what we're leaving behind to take the place of their mom.
I've made a lot of jokes over this weekend about Dusty having students that she had to be incredibly disappointed in. She claims that she's very proud of us, and I'll take it. But you're absolutely right. That's our product. As instructors, they are our product. They are our sandwich.
There's a point of pride too, because, you know, up north, a lot of our students end up either with our department or departments around us, and you don't want somebody going, well, that piece of crap came from that instructor.
Yeah. Perception is reality. So if Sean's EMT student, we'll just call him Justin, so I'm not incriminating anyway. We'll call him Justin, turns out to be a sloppy sandwich, then it really stands to resonate that maybe Sean's program lacks a little bit. And my concern isn't fluffing the state's numbers, having the highest percentage of graduates. I want quality. I'd rather serve one sandwich a day and it be the menu board sandwich than 50 sandwiches that look something like what we saw. Get something.
What motivates me is that I'm training, we are all training the next generation to take care of us. And so I wanna know that, you know, the students that we're putting out there are quality, because they're probably gonna be taking care of me someday. And I tell my students that, like, you work in this community, what chance you need to do it, so.
Absolutely.
Making sure they know what they need to know and look like we want them to represent.
All of those things, and I would add, my motivation is I want people, I want me as a provider to be the guy that is, I'm on a shift with Justin. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time, we're gonna do good patient care. And you know that. You know that when you jump on the schedule with somebody, they're probably gonna try to skirt things a little bit. Maybe we're gonna not do our reports till the end of the shift. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe you're getting emails later in the week because Matt didn't finish it. Maybe you're at conference. Hypothetical situation. Maybe you're at conference getting emails that Matt hasn't finished his reports from your shift on Wednesday. So what are we doing that works to motivate our students, to help set the tone for what we expect of them? My second slide wasn't objectives. My second slide was, what are my expectations for today? Set those early. It starts when you walk in the door. It starts when you look at the menu board. The sandwich is there. That's my expectation. It's established immediately. So what are we doing to set that standard, set that expectation right away? Mark Fankhauser kills it. He kills that avenue. You walk in, there's not a better dressed man in the arena. I don't care.
That's true.
We're booking an appointment to go to his tailor next year. It's
Yes, we are. Yes, we
We're
are.
gonna give Mark a run for his money.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you do in your class that help to set that expectation early? We talked a little bit about it the other day, and it's ironic because none of us presenters get together and talk about what our topics are going to be, and as I sat through breakout sessions on Friday and sat through the keynote yesterday, it's like, wow, this is great. This stuff all really meshes well together. And this, I don't believe I'm going to give you anything in this session that you shouldn't already know. My hope is that you're motivated when you leave here. So, set that expectation early. We talked about the importance of letting some of these, especially our younger population that are coming into, some of us are teaching high school programs, let these kids know what the expectation is, let their parents know. I wrestle personally with, do I think it's appropriate for a 17, 18, 19-year-old to take this class, to be exposed to some of these things? But the reality is it's not up to me. And that's okay. But I'm going to lay the expectation. I'm going to be realistic with you. This is what you are going to be exposed to. And I want you to be aware of that. Another expectation that I set early, and I couldn't be more happy. Sean took over the education program when I left Ogama EMS. And I'm super happy that Sean has maintained it. In my EMT class, I build in the mental health first aid for fire and EMS. Because I want that expectation that it is okay to talk about stuff, that we are accepting of the mental health realm. It's important. I started 14 years ago, I guess. And the mentality, even then, was still get over it. My first cardiac arrest save, my boss and mentor said, "You want a pin for doing your job?" I don't need an award. The reward was enough personally, internally. But let's be realistic. That doesn't work for today. It definitely doesn't work for the people that are coming into the workforce as young people. So is there something that you're doing in your program early on that sets that expectation of, what do you guys do? Do you have orientation and say, here's the book you're gonna have, I expect you to be in class, you can have 3 absences. What are you doing?
So one of the things that I do right there in orientation is I don't just set my expectations for them. I set expectations for myself and give them a chance to set expectations for me. And I hold to those expectations, like a big one. Class starts at 6. I will be here at 6, or I'll do my hour before, but if class starts at 6, we're starting at 6. If there's somebody else that's late, we're not waiting 5-10 minutes for them. They're the ones that are late. I've got 10, 12 other students that are here on time, ready to learn.
On time? We're gonna get to time. We're gonna talk about time because that's really important. So some sloppy behaviors. I don't need to read them all for you. We kind of, when I started introducing the topic, I think we all kind of pictured that person that we work with, or at that neighboring agency, or maybe that neighboring agency as a whole, that they're the sloppy sandwich. They're that third shift Burger King Whopper that just got thrown together. guess this is the point where I make like a disclosure that I have no conflict of interest. I don't work for Burger King or McDonald's. My shift adopted, not my shift at IOSCO. I haven't commandeered them into it yet. But our shift at Ogama adopted the philosophy, do better, be better. The beauty of working on Sundays is there's no management there. It means you get to do whatever you want. You get to do heinous things. You do anything under the sun, and nobody's going to care. They probably won't even find out. They're not gonna even come in on Monday. Now they do, so the future generations there are in trouble. But do better, be better. Set the standard for the shift. Take care of each other. And so let's adopt that philosophy in the classroom. Let's facilitate and empower our students to do those things. Before I jump into that, I think, oh, I screwed it up again. Just don't go back. That's the. Before I go into that, I want to touch on the fact that we do and acknowledge some of those good sandwiches that we create. How do we help them thrive in the classroom? So I met a guy, his name's Mike. He's a CPS worker on the local fire department. I might or might not be not cool enough to be on a fire department, so maybe I have an aversion to firefighters, and I like to make jokes about firefighters. And I know that's a dangerous thing to say in here, and that's okay. They're all jokes. I'm telling you, when I'm doing rehab for you guys, I'm the world's best water boy. You will not find one better, because I know my place in that route. That's what I'm there for. That's our role. So Mike comes in and he joins my first responder class, and he's an adult learner. I wouldn't say he's elderly. He's in his 30s-ish, maybe early 40s. Older than me though. But Mike has had his life. He's figured out things. He decided he wants to trade this demon of working for CPS for this demon of working public safety. But he thrived in that environment in the medical first responder class. Mike, because of helping him facilitate some of those out-of-class study sessions and just letting him do his thing, helped other students thrive, because I'm not going to connect with everybody. There's probably somebody in here that I'm not connecting with right now, and I'm okay with that. It's unfortunate. Not everybody has good taste. Okay? Expected that to go better. So, Mike gets his medical first responder license. He goes in, he takes an EMT class. Happens to be with me as well. I'm excited because I have the expectation. I know what I can expect from Mike. Mike knows what he can expect from me. And Mike does those same things consistently. So he sets up those study groups day one. He's getting these guys prepared for success. First, he knows Justin's teaching style. He's at a very distinct advantage. And Mike is the guy that people want to be their partner. That's a win for me. That's a huge win. The last day of EMT class, Mike came up to me, I was sitting at my desk. He said, "I'm gonna make you proud." That's pretty cool. I wanna be that instructor, that provider that makes Bill, Joe, and Dusty proud. Let's do the things to empower our students so that they can make us proud. So as we're getting ready to teach a course, whether it's a continuing education, whether it's your initial education courses, I don't need to break down the baseline steps of it for you, but let's talk about it. And let's talk about if there's anything that you do special when you're doing these things, give us some feedback. I don't have all the answers. I think they threw around the phrase subject matter expert. That's because I've eaten enough sandwiches. Has nothing to do with I am all knowing. We need to review. We need to review the material. We need to be ready to deliver the message. Have engaging activities. If I come in, all of us have probably sat through a class where we just sat there. Honestly, I hate lecture. It's my least favorite thing to do. I would rather be hands-on and in the lab. But have some engaging activities. I brought a lot of IC students in that blow me away with the ideas that they have for games and things like that just helped connect with those people that I was missing. And there were some aha moments as a result of having some of those other ideas. So make sure that we have some of those activities, making sure we have the materials ready. And this all seems kind of silly that I would put that in there, but there's some lessons to be garnered from those. When I've come into the classroom prepared to teach, whether or not I have to express it to them, the student knows or should be able to see that it's important for Justin to stay current, to continuously be improving and developing his craft. My hope is that they take that and run their career with that same mindset, that I need to continuously be developing my craft. Not just, what is the phrase National Registry uses? Minimum level competency. Anybody take the EMS Leadership Academy with Safe Tech Solutions? Okay. So Aaron Reiner, I kind of pirated this quote from him, and it's minimum level of competency becomes maximum level expectations. That's rough. That's rough. We shouldn't stop when we get here. And unfortunately, we do allow it. Those of us that are teaching in our agencies, and a lot of our students come into the agency, I think we start to see that. I passed the test, so I don't need to do anything else. I'm good. I've got the license, I can go forward. And we certainly need to instill in our students that that isn't the end. Your test isn't on a piece of paper. It's in the truck, it's in the house, it's in the parking lot at Walmart. Maybe it's in the bathroom floor at McDonald's. Have a plan. When we go into the classroom, we have that lesson plan that we're working off of. I want my students to see that lesson. They need to see my lesson plan, but I want my students to recognize that Justin had a plan for when we came in here, so that when they get out into the world, they have a plan. That when they, as clinicians, are responding to the call, that they're starting to piece together things from dispatch information, that they are being prepared and having a plan before they even hit the door. That through my interactions with my students, they learn to interact with their patients. Baseline stuff, but treating people with respect, avoiding personal bias for whatever reason. Student Kay, she lives in Skidway Lake. So maybe, because I know the Skidway Lake area all too well, and if any of you are familiar with the greater northern Michigan area, you know that Skidway Lake might be less than desirable. So if I have that bias towards student A from Skidway Lake, how do my students respond when they go to a call in Skidway Lake? It's acceptable to be less than the menu. When we're setting up labs, the effort that I put into making sure that the equipment is ready, is adequate, is prepared, baseline stuff that I should be doing as an instructor, not telling you anything else special there. But that my students recognize the value of when they do a rig check to be thorough. Because in the classroom, it doesn't matter if my laryngoscope bulb is burned out. Not a big deal. But it does matter when I'm on the truck. And then when we're addressing some of those students that have needs outside of what our normal go in, teach our 4-hour lecture, and then go home, maybe answer a couple of questions at the end. But in the way that I address those unique situations, those students that have something that comes up that needs more attention than what is baseline for me to have to do for them, they learn how to address some of those circumstances in the field. Sometimes it's just going a little bit extra. Maybe it's just a conversation. Communicating with people goes a long way. So, that's a deadly phrase. I got groans already. But that's the way we've always done it. We don't want to change. Chief Al Brunacini, my favorite quote probably ever. I like to adapt it to the EMS world because it definitely applies, but there's 2 things firefighters hate: change and the way things are. It's true. It's true. Things are terrible on B shift. Things are great on C shift. But if we try to implement those changes as instructors, we realize there are some things that maybe we have to change. And so just be willing, be open to explore that. I touched on this a little bit already, but those behaviors that we are in prepping the classroom, that we're modeling those behaviors we expect. And some of us, if I'm teaching for an education consortium, I hope that your motivation is such that you still want to turn out good providers for those areas that you live in. If your goal is to just turn out students, I'm sorry. But these people that we are turning out in our agency, I want those to be the students that I want to work with, that are willing to be prepared, that I've modeled those behaviors throughout my course, that when they come and apply, that the expectation is there. They've already seen the menu, they know what we want, and that they're able to deliver that. Good students become good employees. When I decided I was going to go back to working the road, there was an agency that found Mike and decided that he might be a decent employee for them, and so there's nowhere else in the world I want to go than to work there. There's a little bit of fluff in there. The reality is I had worked there previously, and it's a very great environment, so I was happy to go back. But Mike is on C shift, and so it's really great because now I've turned out a student who is phenomenal in the field. He's always dressed appropriately. He's always exactly what the menu looked like. Performs that way. And I get to work with this team, at least occasionally. But if we make those sloppy sandwiches, it can be challenging to clean up. How do we address those? Is it fixable or is it not? Can I remediate these behaviors, or are we at a point where we need to terminate them? And hopefully before we get to that point, we as instructors have seen these behaviors, and we have this tool called an affective evaluation tool. Do we use that appropriately? I'm gonna trigger somebody on this side of the room. What about the phrase, we'll let registry sort them out?
Oh, God.
Who said it? Is there anybody bold enough in here to say that they have said that? Good. Good. But I wonder, it makes me wonder, because these people that are sloppy sandwiches had to come from somewhere. So there are some educators out there that do subscribe to that philosophy. Whether they're here and don't wanna, good for you, I wouldn't admit to it. But I really, really wonder, are we truly just trying to keep our numbers happy for the state? What's the motivation in cranking out the most and letting registry sort it out? So, some non-verbal things that we do. Our parents setting the bar. Fankhauser, that's the bar. Doesn't get any higher than that. Our body language. I recognize that when you come into the classroom, you've got to have some great body language. When you sit there and teach, what do? I'm actually, full disclosure, I'm recording this session because a couple of years ago, Mark and Dave gave a lecture and said, record yourself. If you want to learn about yourself, record yourself. So I'm doing that. And I know, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm recognizing as I stand here, I rock back and forth like crazy. This message is brought to you by Rockstar Energy and Adderall. That's not a joke. So I know that there are some of those things that I exhibit, but I really do encourage you to do that. Throw on a recording, take a look. Grab a frosty adult beverage, maybe something a little bit more classy if you must, but watch yourself. I'm gonna probably review this on the way home. I've got a nice little drive and see what are some of those body language things that I'm doing. Do I?
You should be right.
I'm aware. I'm fully aware of that.
Jesus.
My wife's gonna drive. Yeah. Just broadcast it on the dash.
That's what cruise control's for.
Adaptive cruise. But in reality, sit down and review. What are some of those things that you do, and is there a way that I can eliminate some of those things? Because the reality is, if I'm exhibiting these things, I'm letting my students are going to pick up on them. Those behaviors that I've exhibited in the classroom, I'm very fortunate to work with 3 of my students on a pretty regular basis, and so I get to pick up on some of those behaviors that I've seen in myself in the classroom that they are doing, for good or for bad. One of my instructors in his entire life, no matter what arena he's in, is the jokester. And so I recognize as I've taken more of his classes, I've adapted some of that, and for good or for bad, it is something I picked up on. So making sure that those behaviors, those nonverbal communications that we exhibit aren't going to be something detrimental to them as they go into the field.
45.
All right. We're supposed to be done at 10:05, right? Hey, we lost an hour. Somewhere we lost an hour. In the verbal communication realm, let's be clear and precise. Active listening, and we all know to do that. Be positive. We went into classes and maybe that instructor just got done working a 36-hour shift, a 48-hour shift. They slept in the classroom for a couple of hours before they got up to teach, and now here we are. And we're mundane, and we hate the world. We don't want to be here. We don't like our boss. We don't like our coworkers. We don't like the students. We don't like oxygen. We're just done with it. So, being conscientious of that, because what is that going to do for our student? If I go into the classroom and I tell you, oh man, I'm just so beat. I just worked 60 hours straight. Well, I just told you that when you get that license, that it's okay for you to go work 60 hours straight and then be whatever type of person you want to be. Is that the expectation that we want to lay for our students?
That's how we're getting the 3-month EMT that's already burnt out.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Jocko. Extreme Ownership is probably the only book I've ever read in my adult life. Not even my paramedic book got as much reading as Extreme Ownership. And if you're not familiar with the book, I grab the audiobook before you jump home, before you drive home. It's worth it. It's very applicable to us. So if you're not familiar with it, Jocko and Leif Babbitt are Navy SEAL, former Navy SEALs. And so what they do is they take their training and skills that they've learned in Navy SEAL training and in the battlefield, and they apply it to business. And you can pay the $6,000 to go see them in conference, or listen to the audiobook and garner some of those same lessons. But one of my favorite quotes that comes out of the book is this: it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. So if we tolerate those things in the classroom, when they come to be employees, then what?
They'll exhibit them.
What's that?
They'll exhibit them.
They're going to exhibit them. But wait, Chase. I thought National Registry was going to sort them out.
So was probation.
So was probation. And so we had an out. And I'm not saying axe everyone. That's certainly not at all what I'm trying to convey. But I'm saying use the tools that we have. We owe it to each other. We owe it to the student to be honest with them about where they're at. We owe it to our communities that we serve to ensure that these aren't behaviors that we're putting out into the world. Bruce Buffer, announcer for the UFC, it's time. Sean talked about time, starting on time. My boys play football. My boys are both under the age of 16, so dad or mom gets to cart them everywhere. And high school football, I'm not sure what year this took place, but in 2004, sorry if that makes anybody feel older, in 2004 when I graduated, we got the month of August to practice football, and that was it. And now, 21 years later, we start football November 1st, as soon as it's done. So dad and mom get to spend the next 11 months carting boys around for football. Time is my biggest pet peeve, because coach says practice ends at 6 o'clock. And at 7-ish, dad's still sitting in the parking lot waiting for practice to be done. What did that tell me about Coach? Coach doesn't care about my time. Coach doesn't value my time. And if you don't value my time, you don't value me. So if I can't start class on time, what am I conveying to my students? You don't matter. You don't matter. And how many of us, my boss is here, so I don't want him to pull my time card. In the classroom, I will argue it is a different story, but how many of us start a couple minutes late? Or we allow for, we're gonna start a little bit late because so-and-so's in the parking lot. These guys don't matter. We want to hold up for this one. Not respecting their time truly is detrimental. And then they become those employees that it's okay to be 20, 30, 90 minutes late. How many of us have used the phrase, I didn't have the time? That's a deal breaker for me. I had an employer who said, I didn't have time to do that. My wife and I I drove home yesterday from here, drove down to Saginaw. We went to a hockey game and came back last night. So she's a preschool teacher, and we were discussing some of the things that they've got a conference coming up as well. And they were tasked with some data work. And there are 3 teachers in her program, and she was asked to write a letter to their governing body that she didn't have time to do this data project because it was exhaustive. So two of the three teachers claim that they don't have time. My wife, bless her, said, it's going to take me as much time to write your letter as it is for me to do the project. And sucked it up and did it. And so that conversation that her and I had last night, I kind of brought back the idea that I want to change that statement to, I don't have time, means it's not my priority. It's not my priority. And if you didn't have time to prepare appropriately, to plan, to make sure the equipment was functional, to invest in your students, it wasn't my priority. And if you're okay with saying that, that's unfortunate. It is our job. It is absolutely what we should be doing. They should be our priority. And I know a lot of us have multiple roles. I'm the guy that can't say no. That's why I'm here. It's actually Gary's fault. I was worried he was going to volunteer me, and so I said, I'll do it. But if we have too many roles, then we need to really step back, acknowledge that we need to make time so that we can let those things be our priority. This jumps back into Jocko's book, and these are just 3 chapters and 3 lessons from the book that really stick out to me. So the concept of extreme ownership is essentially, it starts at the top. It starts with me. Not necessarily at the top, but I'm responsible for all things. And so one of the chapters is there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And the 100-yard view of it is, in SEAL training, they have a team that is underperforming incredibly poorly. And they have a team that is excelling in every single competition. And they can't manage to get this other team to perform. And with no other modification than changing the team leader. Because of that team leader's behavior, the other team became successful, the team that had been successful in all things was now struggling to accomplish any of the goals. And so truly acknowledging that it starts with me. There's no bad team, only bad leader. It's not that these students haven't got it, it's that I haven't put the efforts in to ensure that they get it. It works great if the students also buy into this philosophy and say, it's my responsibility. Another chapter that they talk about is believing. And I think belief in itself is pretty standard, but let's truly believe in the mission. If day one, I walk in, I see what I perceive are going to be sloppy sandwiches, I need to make a conscious decision that if I believe I can change some of these behaviors, if I can model behaviors and get them to a point where they're successful, it's going to be far better than I walk in, I see sloppy sandwiches and say, well, this next 5 months is going to be rough. We'll get through it. And again, we don't necessarily coordinate our lessons. Mark and Dave talked about check your ego yesterday. And I think it's, maybe I don't have all the answers. That personally was a very challenging thing to do. I had accomplished everything in pretty rapid order in my career that I wanted to, and I became the director of an EMS agency. And it was a really big hit to say, you know, this isn't my forte. I hate being in the office. I can't do it. And that admitting to myself that swallowing my pride, checking my ego and saying, hey, this isn't me, this isn't where I thrive. Because if I can't thrive in that role, I can't build my team to where they're thriving. And so maybe it's accepting that, you know what, lecture isn't my strong suit. Let's check the ego. Is there someone I can bring in to help with that? Is there maybe I need to offload this altogether? Maybe initial education isn't my thing. Get somebody else in there that can't swallow your pride so that we're not going to work, throwing on the apron, and making sloppy sandwiches. I like Taylor Swift. I don't care if you do or not. Pretty super excited. 2 weeks from now, I'll be in Kansas City. We're going to do a tour of Arrowhead Stadium. I'm not a Chiefs fan at all. We just happen to be going to the area, and the opportunity to tour an NFL stadium sounded fun. I couldn't go there without jumping online and ordering my Taylor Swift Kansas City Chiefs jersey. I'll post pictures. It'll be out there. But acknowledging, part of that ego, acknowledging that maybe I'm the problem. If substandard performance is accepted and no one is held accountable, the poor performance becomes the new standard. There's a theme. I talked about what Aaron had said. When minimum level competency is the goal, it becomes the maximum expectation. Here we are. Do we accept substandard performance in the classroom? Is there somebody who's just getting by that registry will sort them out? Maybe you didn't say it out loud. That's okay. But maybe you thought, just this one won't hurt. And now they're working in your community. Now they're taking care of your grandmother. And registry didn't sort them out. So ensuring that the behaviors in the classroom are acceptable, are what we expect from the menu. So, this is the official Big Mac photo from McDonald's website. That's what the sandwich should look like. We need to set the bar. We truly do. In all things that we do, recognizing that the behaviors we exhibit in the classroom, behaviors we exhibit outside of the classroom. Maybe we go out on break, have a little nicotine session with the students and cut up a little bit. But all those behaviors that we exhibit are going to transcend, and that is something that they are going to take with them as acceptable and the standard for how they will perform throughout their careers. Are those behaviors things that we are okay with? And lastly, Mark talked about it yesterday. As I sat there and listened to him, like, man, they must have pirated my whole lesson plan. They saw it and said, we're gonna do the same. But in reality, we need to stop that. We need to be okay with, I don't need this class of 10 EMTs because I have 10 EMT vacancies coming up in 6 months. That shouldn't be our motivation. I fear that there are certainly programs that it is. That is the driving force. And I don't necessarily have anyone in particular, but like I said, there are those providers out there in the world. There are those providers in the communities that we go and interact with. And so somebody out there, whether they're here, there, or somewhere else, somebody out there is settling. They're accepting less than. They're allowing that bar to be lowered. And as we lower the bar, we are not going to get a higher level of service. We're not going to deliver that to our communities. We're not going to get that care when they show up for us, for our loved one with RSV, for our grandma. So it's important that we make sure that what we are doing is going to help facilitate positive interactions as they move into their careers. So, that being said, I want to take some time because there are a lot of, and I really didn't expect this many people on a Sunday morning. I heard there were really cheap drinks last night, and I expected most of you guys to still be sleeping. So I'm excited because there are more of us, and it's my hope that with more of us, I want to hear the things that you're doing in your programs. I want to discuss some of those things that you're doing in your programs that is something different than the standard. Something that is helping set you apart, something that some of us might be able to take back and implement in our programs, because I recognize that it might not be everybody's forte to jump up front and talk about what they're doing. It's not at all it's not my forte. And most people I've ever talked to is like 15 to 20. But when Gary came on at Ogama, he said, I want to do this project. And it's kind of like an employee review, and I want to see what your thoughts are to see how it would go with the staff. And so we did this review, and one of the things is goal setting. And so I said, Gary, I really admired the fact that in the fall, when they were looking for a presenter, you popped up and said, yeah, I'll do it. And then there was a change in plans, and Gary ended up, I believe, being the keynote. No? Okay. But nevertheless, that, because I'm not wired to be the one, I won't say no, but I'm not necessarily going to be the one to say, yeah, let's do that. So I said, Gary, one of my goals is to be able to jump up in front of people and deliver a message that, hopefully is motivating. And so when we were planning for this session, I was worried he was gonna volunteer me, so I said I might as well do it. Turned out he said he was gonna volunteer himself, and so I could have gotten out of it as well. But that being said, that goal setting is something that I thought is very important, and that's not earth shattering, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it was something that just was that little push that I needed to go outside of what my comfort zone is. So what are those things in your programs that you guys are doing that might be helping to set the standard?
My students have to change in uniform every day.
Okay.
I mean, they walk in and like you were saying, I don't care that your boots are undone, tuck in your shirt. And Fridays we up into the button-down shirts. So we have polos Monday through Thursday, and the button-downs on Friday, so the body cams can hold on to it.
Okay. I love that. And I appreciate bringing that up. I know there are a lot of programs that do uniforms. I do them as well. When you come into the classroom, I want you to be in uniform because we're gonna practice how we play. I want you to get used to it so that when you come to work, you're not upset about having to be in uniform. The standard is set.
We wanna know about the body cam.
Yeah. Body cam?
Yeah, well, I know what they are, but yeah.
Right, no, so, I added that layer in because it was harder for me to follow them around, taking pictures of them and all that stuff. And so now I'm getting first person perspective of them. The officer in the group will wear the body cam, so I get like at least a partial bird's eye view of what's going on. Because I've got multiple scenarios running at the same time, I can't be on every single one of them with them. And that's one of our debrief tools.
And then you'll be doing it with them.
Right, so my kids, my students download all that stuff on Friday after the calls, and so I've been reviewing that on my time off upstairs. So I've been reviewing that, and then Monday we'll go a debrief, and then we'll pull up the image thread report. I have a dummy account in there, and the crew had to write a report on that.
We go to
stuff.
45.
So if they don't, it's gotta match what I'm seeing there, and, if you wrote it down, you better have done it. If you didn't do it, you better not have wrote it down.
We like that. And that actually, just for our EMS providers, in the lab, I think it's actually a really great idea. Slap a body camera on, and I think we can do so probably pretty affordable, to be able to see exactly what they're seeing. And they said they did we have the opportunity to see that they did? One of the things I do, and I don't know that it's that crazy outside of, but I do frequent check-ins with the students. After every examination, we, in the office, sit down, have a conversation. Where are you at? What do you need from me? What do I need from you? Are we meeting those expectations of each other? And here are the things that I think you might need to work on, because we can evaluate. It doesn't help you if I wait till the end to evaluate you. If we do so early on, we can help to curb some of those behaviors. So I think that's a great idea. Is there anything else? Somebody that's doing something that they just think is cool. Brag on yourself a little bit. I promise you there are very few people that are going to brag on you, so give yourself a pat on the back. Yes, sir.
So we teach the high school education, of course. We talked about our high school is tied to the fire station, and part of their curriculum, they go to the fire station and just the EMT class. We set up last year, we actually interviewed all the students as part of their application process to set the expectations without setting the expectations, but asking them the questions. Like, what does being on time to class mean to you? What are your strengths in working in a group? What are the things that you're weak at working in a group? How do you think you could do that better? What do you think you're gonna bring to this program? So we kind of use that as an example of the high school kids. They had no real experience in interviewing, but it was a good opportunity for them. So once the class was done, we hired a couple of kids, and wow, it was like really awesome to go to a real interview and have had that practice at least get to see what that was like, so that was.
That's awesome. And that was a conversation and question that had come up the other day, because I don't have any experience in the teaching high school students realm. But I was curious, and it sounds like across the board, there's a variety of, are these high school programs being filled with students who just need some type of elective to get a grade, or are these students who are truly geared and focused towards jumping into this as a career? And that's really what came out of that conversation. And so I had followed up with, as the programs, and the answers again were across the board, but as the programs, do we get discretion from the schools that are sending us those students? Do we have the opportunity to interview them before we accept them into the program? Because I want to ensure that my time is being invested in the right places. And it seemed like some did get the opportunity to do that, and there were others that were not.
You can do the interview, but you're still gonna take what you're gonna take from that.
You don't get your cake and get to eat it too.
What was that?
You don't always get your cake and get to eat it too.
No. Let you interview and then just, this is the way it is. This is the way we've
The other
always
part
done
of it though is, like Kim was saying yesterday, we can affect some of those that didn't really want to be there to start with. They're like, oh, wait a minute, I do like this. And so you move them from this category over to this category.
Yeah.
And you get the kids that are over here, or even the students, because they just finished a night class as well. You get those who are like, I have to be here because it's a requirement for my public safety thing. And then they get bit by the bug, and now they really want to do it, right? And so that bar setting at the beginning helps everybody go, oh, wait a minute. This isn't just a bird course that I can sit through and wait and fly off of it. This isn't underwater basket weaving, right? So, yeah.
And again, if we set that expectation early, this is exactly what you are signing up for. Giving them that opportunity, and maybe they can go to a guidance counselor and say, hey, you know what? I went in and this might not be for me. But also being willing to say, hey, if you're not sure about this, I'm willing to come alongside you, and let's see if maybe this could be your thing. Anybody else? No. Yes.
We also have uniforms, we do initial education, and one of my pet peeves is when they come in, their hair is not combed. So I will offer them combs for the boys, combs and ponytail holders for the girls. And then, well, they don't have hair. Most of my kids all have hair during high school so far. But, and then bringing in, we have bigger expiring departments. They are sharp, they look great, even in the middle of the night. And so bringing them in and letting the kids see, this is what you wanna look like someday. And watching how some of those kids who really didn't know any better, they crawl out of bed, get up in the morning, put on their uniform, and, their hair is everywhere. And then just pulling them aside and saying, hey, go look in the mirror. I've actually made them stand in front of the mirror and say, do you want somebody who looks like you showing up on scene? And they're like, no. So, not belittling them, just helping them understand, hey, listen, I know what is really important, how other people perceive you.
That's powerful, and for those back there, very soft-spoken, but I love that. She put a kid in front of the mirror and said, do you want somebody who looks like you showing up to your emergency? I'm paraphrasing, but that's powerful. There is a lot of power in that statement, because that gives them the opportunity to self-reflect. It ties into something that I like to do. Usually it's after a significantly underperforming score. Just so you know, our agency ran 5,000 calls last year. and you got 70%. We're just throwing out an arbitrary number, okay? So I want to personalize this because this is your community that you live in. This is where your kids are. This is where your grandparents live. So let's take those numbers. So of the 5,000 calls that we're gonna run, and I'm just gonna throw out a number, I think we're like 350 if we're at 70%. So 30%, carry the one, divide. Okay, you get the point. I'm giving them a tangible number that says if you ran every call that we ran, you're negatively impacting this number. And are you okay with it? Because how many of our students give us that same line that I talked about, I didn't have time. That's fine. Just do me a favor. Tell me it wasn't your priority. Tell me it wasn't your priority, that you had horses to feed, that you XYZ, kids had a soccer game. And I'm not telling you I don't want somebody to miss their kids anything. I did that. So I laid that expectation. I don't want you to do those things. But truly giving them a tangible number that this is what you're potentially negatively affecting because you didn't have time, and are you okay with that? Anyone else? Okay. I want to thank you guys. Full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever talked to like more than 15 to 20 people. Absolutely terrified to do so, and now that I'm done with the presentation, I can let my hair down. All three of them. But if I could be so bold, and you're going to get evaluations, but I'm willing, also because I want this on camera so I have it to fall back on, I would love any feedback directed towards me, if you're willing to do so. Anybody have anything for me?
Good job.
Yeah?
It's not like a Taylor Swift.
I am going to try to be intentional on not being Rock and Ronnie the next time, but that is definitely a thing for me. So, yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I think it's very valuable. I am encouraged by the fact that we have such a large group on a Sunday morning that's still here. You could be in the room hungover, or you could be on your way home. You chose to spend it here, and I hope that you found value in it. I hope that you're motivated, and you will go back and make good sandwiches. Yeah, good one.
Good job, Reverend.